Hi, fifth graders. So I heard that some of you are having a hard time accessing Pearson and being able to get on and read The Road to Freedom. So I'm going to do a read aloud, very similar to what we would do in class. I'm going to read the story and then I'm going to go through and ask a couple questions. Obviously, we can't have a class discussion right now, but what I'll do is I'll ask a question and then I'll pause for a little bit so that you have time to think through how you would have responded if we'd been in class, and then I'll give a possible answer that would be something I would expect from you. So again, this is The Road to Freedom, written by Lisa Klein Ransom. If you want, you can follow along on Pearson if you're able to access it. We're going to start on chapter 1. And what I love about this book is they have some really great illustrations, so I'll try and show those to you as well. Ever since Mama came back to the quarters, she'd been fretting. There was talk in the fields and folks were saying the master had money troubles. They said selling slaves was the only way he could pay his debts. Debts are when you owe money. Last month, the master had sold Uncle Jacob and his woman Mary. They were old and didn't fetch a good price on the auction blocks, but this time he was selling the younger ones. Mama knew that meant the master was planning to sell Lula's 2 boys, Miss Bessie's new baby, and me. I told Mama not to worry. It's just talk is all, Mama, I said, hoping she didn't see my hands shaking while I stirred up supper, but she didn't stop fretting that night or the next nights either. So if you're not sure what the word fretting is, can you try and think about what context clues we had? But she didn't stop fretting that night or the next nights either. So think through, what would Mama have been feeling? What would her emotions have been like? Fretting means worried. She's worried about her daughter possibly being sold. Papa had been gone for 2 winters now. Before he left, he and Mama sat in the cabin by the lantern most nights, talking soft so I couldn't hear. On my pallet, I kept my eyes closed, but my ears were open, listening. We follow this road here along the creek. Papa scratched with a stick on the dirt floor of our cabin for Mama. Someone will be waiting there. Papa talked to folks and slaves who traveled, and runaways too. He talked real quietly about how to run, and which way north is best. Then one day, when Mama got back from the field, Papa was gone. The master had sold him south, and he'd taken him from the yard where he worked shoeing horses. We never got a chance to say goodbye. Me and Mama cried so hard I thought we'd never stop, and after that, there was no more talk about running. But now, with folks talking about the auction block, Mama said they'd sell me and she'd never see me again. We're all the family each other have, Emma, Mama said, looking deep into my eyes. She took my hand and we knelt on the cabin floor, praying long and hard into the night for mercy and deliverance. When we turned the lantern down and settled on our pallets, Mama slept soundly for the first night all week. When she woke in the morning, Mama told me she had a dream about a drinking gourd and a quilt on a fence and a river as wide as a road. She said that it was a sign, showing her the way north to freedom. We gotta run, she told me. We leave tonight. Never in my life had a day felt so long. Do you ever feel like that? Like a day seems so long? What things usually make your day last long? Is it when you're excited for something, worried about something, bored by something? Why do you think Emma's day felt so long for her? Which of those emotions was she probably feeling? Each hour felt like 2, and my mouth was dry just thinking about running. Me and Mama knew that most who ran didn't make it. The runaways they caught came back and were punished hard. No one who was caught ever ran again. When Mama came back from turning the fields, she put aside some ash cake and a bit of salted meat. We each put on an extra shift, and Mama wrapped my feet with cloth. The chill hit me as soon as we opened the door to the night, but chances were better if we traveled in the cold, when the river turned to ice and was hard enough to cross on foot. That night, we left with our food tied tight in a scarf, the clothes on our backs, and only the North Star to guide us. So that's the end of chapter 1. I want you to think about who the narrator of this story is. So in your mind, think through who's the narrator of the story. And the second thing I want you to think about is, how do you know? How do you know they're the narrator of the story? So the narrator of this story is Emma. How do we know that? Because if we go back into the story, she's saying things like, never in my life had a day felt so long. So she's referring to herself. So when we see things like I and we, that means that it's first person. Mama cried so hard I thought we'd never stop. So she's using that first person, telling us that she is the one writing the story. She's the one retelling the story. So when we think about whose point of view this is coming from, it's coming from the viewpoint of Emma. Okay, so we're seeing her story laid out through her eyes. I want you to think about how this might be different if it had been written by someone else's point of view, from her mom's point of view, from her dad's point of view, or maybe even from the point of view of the slave owners. What would their story be like, and how would it be different? All right, I'll leave you with that to think about. Tomorrow I will upload chapter 2, and we'll go through a couple other questions with chapter 2. All right, bye guys.